Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 562, The Impressive Collection of Relics. Chapter 562, The Impressive Collection of Relics. Park Sagwa took Alaric to a mansion twice the size of House Silversword's main mansion. It looked grand and imposing. I underestimated the wealth of her family. Establishing a connection with them would be great. Alaric thought to himself. Your Highness, I hope you don't find our humble home lacking. Park Sagwa smiled at him. Humble home? Alaric forced a smile while shaking his head. Not at all. I'm glad to hear that. Park Sagwa chuckled. Upon entering, they were greeted by a huge collection of historical relics placed inside glass cases. Those relics were once used by historical figures. Park Sagwa explained that when she saw Alaric's gaze glued to the items. These are just collections? Some of the weapons displayed here were even more impressive than the main weapons used by the aristocrats of Estania. Your family has an impressive collection of relics, he praised with a sigh. Park Sagwa stopped in front of one of the displayed relics. It was a blood-red sword that was emitting an oppressive aura. It was still sheathed in its scabbard, but one could already sense its bloodthirsty nature. She touched the glass case as she looked at the blood-red sword. This sword is something my late grandfather took from his defeated foe. It has transcended the level of relic-rated equipment. My grandfather even said that the sword has developed a soul of its own. A sword that has developed a soul of its own? What a load of bulls. Do you want to use appraisal on the selected target? Yes. No. How? How is this possible? He was stunned. His appraisal actually worked on the sword. This meant that she wasn't speaking nonsense. The sword was sentient. Feeling curious, Alaric clicked. Yes. Sword Soul, Nascent Stage, EXP. 11/100. Potential, SSS. Engraved Ability. Berserker's Fury, SSS. Blood Regeneration, SSS. Hideous Soul, SSS. Traits. Communication, F. Comprehension, F. Sharpness, 500. Durability, 25. Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. This was the first time he had seen something like this. This sword is more powerful than my short sword, but its durability is severely lacking. It's probably because it's an ancient weapon that is left and used for many years. What a pity. He felt that it was too wasteful to leave an amazing weapon like this inside a glass case. As if sensing his thoughts, Park Sagwa said with a smile. You might be thinking why we left it here. Alaric was surprised at how she had guessed his thoughts. This sword, it might be strong, but it turns its wielder into a devil who only knows how to kill. She sighed with a regretful expression. 3 of our transcendent knights had turned into mindless killers after they used this sword. We had to kill them since they could no longer recognize the difference between allies and enemies. She added. Alaric recalled that there was a similar weapon used by a high elf of the Greenwood Kingdom. The 2 weapons were quite similar, but this one was definitely more powerful. Park Sagwa showed him a few more extraordinary relics, but they weren't as impressive as the blood-red sword. Seeing that he had lost interest, the Duchess brought them to the dining hall. That sword has developed an evil soul. If it is given a few more years to grow, it might turn into a true devil and manifest a physical form. Nivis whispered into his ear. Alaric was stunned by her words. He was unfamiliar with the true devil that she mentioned, but based on her expression, Alaric guessed that it must be a terrifying being. He wanted to ask her more about it, but he knew that it wasn't the right time, so he could only hold in his curiosity. A moment later, they arrived at the dining hall. Alaric was amazed by the magnificent architecture, but Nivis scoffed at this grandiose view. She thought that it was overly pretentious and unnecessary. It looks like you have something to say about our dining hall. Park Sagwa ignored her all this time, but she felt slightly annoyed at this woman's reactions. Nivis pointed at herself and asked, Are you talking to me? Park Sagwa narrowed her eyes and was about to speak when Alaric's voice drifted over. Your Grace, I apologize for her behavior. My friend here isn't used to such luxury, so she can be ignorant sometimes. I hope you can forgive her for my sake. Alaric sent Nivis a deep look as he said those words. He was still thinking of establishing a connection with the Duchess, so he didn't want their relationship to sour over something as minor as this. Park Sagwa's expression eased up upon hearing his words. "Since your Highness has spoken, I will forget about it." Nivis stared deeply at the Duchess. She was slightly irritated, but she chose to stay silent to give Alaric some face. The atmosphere became a bit awkward, but luckily, their food arrived soon after, lightening up the mood. Veronicans were famously known for their love for spicy food. They even had to source spices from other empires just to have enough supply for the whole country. With the huge demand for spices, the prices spiked to almost double or even triple their original value. However, this didn't stop the Veronicans from buying them. Half of the food served on the table was spicy. Alaric could already smell the strong aroma of the dishes. "We Veronicans love spicy dishes. Please give them a try and let me know your thoughts." Park Sagwa smiled at him. "All right." Alaric tried the closest dish to his plate and was left stunned by the unique taste. It was flavorful and it brought a strong kick that made him feel like his throat was on fire. "I love it," he remarked with a smile. "I'm glad you like it. Please have some more." Park Sagwa beamed. Chapter 563 Colosseum. Chapter 563 Colosseum. After the meal, Park Sagwa invited him to the Colosseum to watch a match between her subordinates. Alaric wanted to reject her, but he was curious about this Colosseum, so he agreed. "Our annual event will be held 2 months from now. If your Highness has time, you should come here to join the fun. You can bring your subordinates with you. If you want, you can also register them as participants." Park Sagwa invited him with a smile. "If I have time, I will definitely be here," Alaric answered. The Colosseum was a lot bigger than he had thought. There was a platform in the middle where the fighters displayed their prowess and ascending seats meant for the audience. It was what he had pictured in his mind. He could already imagine how blood-pumping it would be to fight on the platform with all the people watching you. Park Sagwa took them to the VIP section, which had the best view in the entire Colosseum. After taking their seats, the Duchess called in 2 warriors and asked them to show off their skills. One was a tall and slender middle-aged man who wielded a spear. The other one was a muscular man with a warhammer. Both warriors were elite knights who served the Duchess. Alaric inspected their attributes. The slender guy had the advantage in speed, while the other one had higher strength. Their attributes are above average, but they are not on the level of our warriors. Are they the best warriors of House Park? Alaric thought to himself. Those 2 are just minor officers in the household. They are still lacking, but they are brave men. Park Sagwa introduced the identities of the 2 warriors. At this moment, the battle had just begun. The first one to make his move was the spear wielder. He was fast like an agile wolf. He was also precise and swift with his spear. On the other hand, the warrior wielding the warhammer was so slow. He could barely dodge his opponent's attacks. However, each time he attacked, the spear wielder had to use significant effort to evade. "They are good fighters. Are they specialized in single combat?" Alaric inquired as he nonchalantly watched the fight. "You have good eyes, your Highness." "That's right. They specialize in single combat." Park Sagwa stared at him in surprise. "It's not hard to guess. I can see it from their movements. Warriors who are used to large-scale battles are usually more careful with their every move. In the battlefield, one mistake could mean the end of your life." Alaric calmly remarked. "Does your Highness think that warriors who specialize in large-scale battle are better?" Park Sagwa asked while observing his expression. Hearing this, Alaric shook his head. "Not really. There are situations when we would need fighters with strong single combat capabilities. They are more decisive during missions, so they have higher success rates. We cannot really compare them since they have different specialties." Park Sagwa was pleased with his response. "You have an amazing view, your Highness. No wonder you managed to become a venerable at your age." Alaric shook his head and chuckled. "I still have much room to grow." While they were chatting, the battle was already coming to an end. Surprisingly, the spear-wielding fighter who was the more skilled between the 2 was on the losing end. He made a glaring error which gave his opponent an opportunity for a counterattack. After a series of exchanges, the spear-wielding fighter was knocked out with a hit on his stomach. They weren't allowed to use mana, so no one was seriously injured. "Not bad. They fought well." Alaric nodded while nonchalantly clapping his hand. Park Sagwa signaled to the 2 fighters to leave the platform. "Is your Highness interested in having a spar? You can choose one of my subordinates to fight with you." She sent him a deep look. Hearing this, Alaric raised an eyebrow. So this was her goal. "She wants to test out my strength. Did someone instigate her to do this?" Alaric shook his head. "I must decline. I am still recovering from the battle in Harun, so I cannot fight right now. However, my subordinates will be up for the task. If you don't mind, you can send your best fighter to fight one of them." He chuckled with a competitive grin. Park Sagwa clicked her tongue inwardly. Alaric was more slippery than she had thought. That would be wonderful. I have heard stories about your warriors' exploits, so I wanted to see them fight in person. How about your highness choose one of your warriors while I choose one of my own? She suggested. All right, let's do that. Alaric agreed. Park Sagwa chose a middle-aged transcendent knight. It was a bald man with dark skin. He had ferocious facial features like a tiger in the wild. Alaric wasn't in a hurry to choose his fighter. He inspected the warrior that Park Sagwa had chosen and used his appraisal. A strength-based warrior with above-average speed and endurance. Not a bad choice. If he were to choose Sekus or Galliner to fight this man, it would be an easy win, so he discarded the two from his choices. Who should I send to fight for me? His eyes stopped on Azazel, but he thought that it would be a one-sided battle if he were to send the Demonkin. Soon, his eyes stopped on Fredrin. Among the 10 people he brought, he was one of the weaker ones. Fredrin had just become a transcendent knight a few months ago, so his strength was still lacking. However, Alaric had confidence in him. Fredrin, show them the might of House Silversword, Alaric announced. Fredrin didn't expect to be chosen, but he wasn't flustered. He gave Alaric a salute and responded with a solemn look. Yes, your highness. Fredrin stepped onto the platform under everyone's curious eyes. Is he your strongest fighter? Park Sagwa asked as she observed Fredrin. Alaric smiled faintly and gave her a vague response. Who knows? Chapter 564, another match? Chapter 564, another match? Park Sagwa revealed a look of amusement as she turned her gaze back to the battle platform. It doesn't matter how strong a warrior is. Min-Jik is the second-best transcendent knight of House Park, specializing in single combat. She thought to herself, her eyes filled with confidence. You may begin, she announced. As soon as her words fell, the dark-skinned warrior grabbed the broadsword strapped on his back and pounced at Fredrin with a probing slash. Whoosh! Seeing this, Fredrin calmly deflected the blow using his sword. Clang! His slash is heavy. His opponent's strength made Fredrin furrow his eyebrows. I need to control the tempo of the fight. Knowing that he was a bit weaker than his opponent, Fredrin quickly analyzed what he had to do. He released a series of swift slashes and stabs. Each attack was delivered with precision, aiming for the opponent's weak sides. However, the dark-skinned warrior wasn't an ordinary man. He masterfully evaded his attacks with simple turns. He even occasionally countered to make Fredrin retreat. Clang! Clang! Both fighters appeared to be equal and no one seemed to have the upper hand. This continued for an entire minute, giving the audience an exciting match. At this moment, Park Sagwa narrowed her eyes. The strongest transcendent knight of House Silversword is no pushover. But his struggle won't last long. Min-Jik hasn't used that move yet. Once he does, this battle will be over. Although she was surprised by Fredrin's combat skills, she was still confident about her subordinate's victory. She had trained these warriors herself. She believed that they were nearly unbeatable in single combat against someone in the same realm. However, her confidence didn't last long. The warrior that she was so proud of was showing signs of weakness. His face was covered in sweat and he was barely keeping up with Fredrin's momentum. I need to end this in the next move, he thought to himself as he eyed Fredrin with a hall-like gaze. He wanted to put on a show for the Duchess, so he used flashy moves earlier, but those big movements drained his energy. He thought that Fredrin would be an easy opponent, but the guy remained firm and stable throughout the whole match. He was like an unshakable tree. In the next moment, the dark-skinned warrior suddenly sped up. He charged towards Fredrin in a flash and sent a downward chop that carried immense force. Whoosh! Fredrin scoffed in his heart upon seeing this. I have blocked attacks more powerful than this. He stepped forward and lifted his shield above his head. Clang! Fredrin didn't even flinch after blocking his sword. He then kicked his opponent's chest, catching him off guard. The dark-skinned warrior was pushed back and stumbled, unable to steady himself. When he stabilized his footing, he realized that a sword was already on his neck. He gulped down hard and looked at the calm-faced Fredrin. I lost? Except for the warriors of House Silversword. Everyone was stunned. Park Sagwa was also filled with surprise, but she didn't show it on her face. That was a good fight. She clapped her hands, beaming. Fredrin put away his sword and cupped his fist at his opponent to show his respect. The latter returned the gesture absent-mindedly. Ha ha ha! Splendid performance, Fredrin. Alaric laughed, looking incredibly pleased at the result. Not bad, as expected of the meat shield of the North. William, the oldest warrior in the group, remarked with a laugh. The others laughed along, clearly not taking the fight seriously. The meat shield of the North? Park Sagwa raised an eyebrow at Alaric with an incredulous expression on her face. A strong warrior who had bested her subordinate had such a ridiculous nickname? Alaric guffawed. Please don't listen to their nonsense. They just gave him that nickname as a joke. Park Sagwa forced a smile. Why would they give him such a ridiculous nickname? Alaric shook his head, laughing. Because Sir Fredrin is always at the vanguard. He is always the first one to charge in battle. Alaric found it amusing. Fredrin didn't seem to mind the unique moniker. He just smiled faintly with a shake of his head. How about another match? Park Sagwa suddenly said. Alaric stopped laughing and gave her a strange look. I think that should be enough, Your Grace. We can do this again some other time. Park Sagwa believed that he was just making an excuse since he was afraid to lose. Your Highness, it would be a pity to end it like this when things are just starting to get fun. Alaric was speechless. I'm just trying to give you a way out so you can avoid embarrassing yourself. He helplessly shook his head and shrugged. All right then. Please choose your fighter, while I choose mine. Thank you for accepting my unreasonable request. Park Sagwa grinned. Her competitive spirit was ignited. She couldn't allow them to leave after defeating one of her own. Song Han, she called out. I'm here, Your Grace. A deep voice echoed across the Colosseum. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the warrior who had stepped forward. It was a towering man with light brown skin. He was clad in steel armor from the chest down. In his hand was a giant axe that was even bigger than his body. Just from looking at him, one could already tell that he was a powerful warrior. This is Song Han, the strongest warrior of House Park. Park Sagwa announced with a proud smile. Alaric used his appraisal on the man and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. His strength is nearly maxed out and his other attributes are also very high. His only weakness is his mediocre agility. Alaric looked at his subordinates and pondered deeply. Who should I send this time? He didn't want the Duchess to lose so badly, so he crossed out Galliner and Sekus, the two forces of nature. It looks like you are having a hard time making a decision. How about I choose one of your fighters at random? It's just a spar anyway, so it doesn't matter who wins or loses. Park Sagwa's voice drifted into his ears. Chapter 565, The Duchess's Surprise. Chapter 565, The Duchess's Surprise. Alaric looked at the Duchess with a faint smile. She tried to hide it, but he could sense her desire to win. How superficial. I like that idea, he replied while gesturing at her to make a choice. Park Sagwa beamed at him. She then looked at Alaric's subordinates and scanned them one by one. Her gaze stopped on Nivis. She seems to have an aura similar to that of monsters. How strange. She felt that Nivis held some profound secrets, so she crossed her out. She then turned her eyes on the other warriors. This woman looks weak. Choosing her would make them think that I'm deliberately choosing weaker opponents. She moved her eyes away from Scylla. At this moment, her eyes stopped on a warrior with white pupils. Is he blind? There seems to be something special about him. His aura is tamed, but I can feel that he is strong. I choose him. Park Sagwa pointed to Sekus. Alaric and his subordinates revealed strange faces after hearing her choice. Are you sure about that, Your Grace? Alaric cleared his throat. Park Sagwa raised an eyebrow. Is there anything wrong? Is he injured? No, not at all. Alaric shook his head and waved his hand. Since he isn't injured, let's proceed with the match. Park Sagwa couldn't wait for the next fight to start. Alaric sighed inwardly. I tried my best to help you save face, but you just have to pick the worst opponent for your subordinate. Fine. I have no objections. He sent a hand signal to Sekus. Sir Sekus, you can only use one hand in this match, he commanded. His words made the Duchess frown. Your Highness, Song Han's attacks are ferocious. Your subordinate might get injured if he is only allowed to use one hand. Trust me, he will be fine. Alaric chuckled nonchalantly. Seeing that he had no intention of retracting his command, Park Sagwa had no choice but to follow along. You two may begin, she announced, her eyes containing a hint of displeasure. Sekus placed his dominant hand behind his back and pulled a dagger with the other. His actions annoyed his opponent. I'm sorry, buddy, but I don't intend to go easy on you. Sekus didn't respond and just stood there unmoving. Seeing this, Song Han snorted and took the initiative to attack. He rushed towards Sekus like an angry bull. His steps were heavy and his eyes sharp. He swung his giant axe, causing a violent tearing sound in the air. Park Sagwa and the warriors of House Park thought that it would end in just one move. But then something unexpected happened. The blind and slender warrior lazily raised his dagger to block the axe that was disproportionately larger than his weapon. Clang! Song Han's axe was stopped. What? How could this be? Song Han prided himself as the strongest warrior of House Park, but his confidence wavered all of a sudden. He used more strength to push his opponent away, but the other party remained rooted to the ground. Rage and frustration overwhelmed him. With a stomp of his foot, he used his full strength. Veins protruded on his face and everyone could see that he was putting his all. However, nothing changed. Sikas casually lifted his foot and sent a roundhouse kick to the opponent's face. His kick was swift and decisive, but Song Han blocked it with his arm. Pa! The towering warrior grimaced. The seemingly casual kick almost broke his arm. He could feel his skin burning from the impact. Before he could react to the pain, his opponent suddenly vanished. Where is he? Don't move. If you move an inch, you might die. A chilling voice echoed behind him. When did he? Song Han felt a cold sensation on his nape. That's enough, Sikas. The battle is over, Alaric announced. The Duchess and the warriors of House Park were still reeling in shock. In that last moment, Sikas moved so fast that he suddenly disappeared in their eyes. Even Park Sagwa barely sensed his movements. That guy, how can he move so fast? The Duchess was filled with disbelief that she was unable to speak for a few seconds. Your Grace, why don't we stop here? I still have to see Her Majesty, so I must go now. Alaric's voice pulled her from her thoughts. She blinked her eyes and put on a smile. Oh right, then we will stop here for today. I enjoyed my short time with you, Your Grace. I would like to stay longer, but I cannot let Her Majesty wait when she is expecting my presence. With a smile on his face, Alaric stood up from his seat. Park Sagwa rose to her feet. I also enjoyed our time together, Your Highness. I admire your warrior's combat skills. If you have time, feel free to visit me. She added. Of course. Alaric nodded with a chuckle. Do you want me to escort you to the capital? Park Sagwa asked. It's fine. I brought a guide with me, so there is no need to trouble you, Your Grace. Alaric sent Shin Dolsuk a look while saying this. The Veronican commander was now looking at him with undisguised admiration. Is that so? Then I hope you have a pleasant trip to the capital. Don't forget about the annual event. I will send a formal invitation soon, so you'd better attend it. The Duchess became more curious about this young venerable. If his subordinates were already amazing, how about him? She wanted to find out more. I can't promise you, but if I have time, I will definitely attend the event. Alaric didn't give her a definite answer, since he still had many matters to take care of at home. Park Sagwa sighed with regret. All right, I won't keep you here. The two exchanged farewells. Alaric left with his subordinates soon afterwards. Park Sagwa sent them off and watched them leave, her eyes glowing with interest. Chapter 566 Encountering Rotten People on the Road. Chapter 566 Encountering Rotten People on the Road. Alaric was riding on a brown war horse with a black mane. He got this horse from the Duchess as a gift. It was a disaster-grade beast, but she didn't hesitate to give it to him. His subordinates, including Shin Dolsuk, also got fatal-grade war horses from her. This just showed how wealthy House Park was. The Duchess is really generous. Alaric let out a smile. House Silversword might have gotten stronger over the past few months, but they still didn't have the level of wealth that House Park had. We should push for an alliance with them to smooth our relationship with Veronica. Alaric thought to himself. Your Highness, if we follow the main road, it will take us about 4 days to reach the capital. I know a shortcut that will cut the journey to 3 days, but we will have to pay some fees to cross this road. Shin Dolsuk's voice pulled him from his thoughts. A shortcut? Is it safe? Alaric no longer trusted these so-called shortcuts. Based on his experience, they were usually more dangerous. Shin Dolsuk smiled and replied with a nod. Yes, Your Highness. This shortcut is a private road built by a powerful merchant family. There are warriors stationed on this road, so it's safe. He had used this shortcut quite a few times in the past, so he was familiar with it. Alaric thought for a moment before he agreed. All right, let's use this shortcut. I don't mind paying the fees, but I don't intend to be fleeced. Shin Dolsuk patted his chest confidently. I will handle the negotiations, Your Highness. Just leave it to me. I promise that they will give us a fair price. With his assurance, Alaric chuckled. Then I will leave this in your hands. Thank you for the trust, Your Highness. Shin Dolsuk was excited. The group later detoured and headed to another route. The road was surprisingly well maintained and there were warriors stationed in small outposts. The only issue was that they had to pay a small fee on each outpost before they were allowed to cross the road. With Shin Dolsuk there, they only had to pay a fee of a few copper coins. It was just a small amount, so no one bothered to complain. Along the way, they encountered other groups who were also using the shortcut. Most of them were merchants and aristocrats. At this moment, Warwick approached him and whispered, Your Highness, I think those people don't like us. He could see them scowling at them. The discrimination was evident. Don't mind them. Alaric shook his head. Veronica and Estania didn't have a good relationship. Although both countries weren't at war, the citizens of both empires despise each other. We are enemies, so it is only natural for them to feel that way. He added with a chuckle. Warwick clenched his fists and lowered his head. If Alaric weren't here, he would already have pounced on the locals and attacked them with his sword. Look at those Estanian cowards. They don't even dare let out a fart. Ha ha ha. A loud voice drifted into their ears. Everyone's faces darkened upon hearing this. They were suppressing their anger, but this guy was getting out of line. Hey! Shin Dol-suk pointed at the instigator with a mixture of anger and nervousness. You'd better watch your mouth. If you speak another word, you might have to chat with my sword. He warned with a stern look. Hearing this, the man just sneered, clearly unafraid of his threats. Do you even know who I am? You are just a lowly warrior, so just shut your mouth. Shin Dol-suk narrowed his eyes. He was furious, but he controlled his emotions. He was about to say something in rebuttal when he felt a tap on his shoulder. It's fine, Commander Shin. There is no need to waste your breath. Just ignore them. Alaric smiled at him. Your Highness. Shin Dol-suk hesitated, but he still complied. Seeing that he offered no response, the man became even more arrogant. The next time you encounter me, you'd better lower your head. Shin Dol-suk gritted his teeth, his eyes turning cold. He glared at the other party as they passed by their carriage. I'm sorry, Your Highness. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. The Veronican commander felt that it was his fault that everyone was insulted. You have nothing to apologize for. We are just unlucky to encounter a few rotten people. Alaric waved his hand indifferently. Shin Dol-suk admired his magnanimity. Thank you for being understanding, Your Highness. Not all Veronicans are like those people. Most of us are friendly and kind to others. He didn't want Alaric to think that Veronicans hated them. Alaric merely smiled. When Shin Dol-suk looked away, Alaric sent a secret signal to Sikas. The quiet man understood his intentions. He waited for some time before he silently separated from the group. The others noticed this, but they didn't say anything. Only Shin Dol-suk remained oblivious. Sikas tied his horse to a secluded spot and waited behind a tree. He eyed the road with a calm expression as if he were waiting for something. Several minutes later, he saw a carriage passing by the road. It was the carriage of the man who had insulted them earlier. Seeing this, Sikas took out a bunch of hidden weapons as he blended into the greenery. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, Cody Linker, a man in his early 20s, grabbed the hair of a beautiful woman and pushed her head down his crotch. Do you like it? Does it taste good? He asked as he looked at the naked woman before him with intense desire. Gawk, gawk, yes, I like it. I like your cock, my lord. The woman replied, her face red. Cody was aroused by the woman's words. He pushed her down, making her gag. Ok, gawk, Cody Linker was enjoying every moment of it. The warmth of her tongue, her erotic moaning sounds, and her lustful gaze. It brought him immense pleasure. However, something suddenly happened. Chapter 567 Sorrel, the capital of Veronica. Chapter 567 Sorrel, the capital of Veronica. Ah! Enemy attack! Protect the young lord. Cody's lust was extinguished when he heard his subordinate's screams and shouts. What's going on? He pushed the naked woman and took a peek at the situation outside through the carriage window. He could see his subordinates circling the carriage in a defensive formation. Some of them appeared to be injured with various wounds all over their bodies. Seeing this, he was flustered. What the hell? Who dares to attack us near the capital? He couldn't believe that someone would actually dare to ambush them on their way to the capital. My lord, what happened? Are there bandits outside? The naked woman asked, shaking with fear. Cody didn't want to appear weak in front of his woman, so he snorted and put on a confident smile. It's nothing. My subordinates can handle them. It's just a small group of thieves. No big deal. Let's continue where we left off. He smiled evilly as he pulled the woman into his embrace. He fondled her breasts and kissed her neck. My lord! The woman was still afraid, but she didn't want to offend the Viscount's son, so she could only follow along with him. Seeing that she was offering no resistance, Cody smirked. Use your boobs this time. He pushed the woman down. Just as she was about to grab his cock, the carriage door suddenly sprang open, making her yelp in surprise. Cody was also startled. Hey! Can't you see that I am in the middle of dash? To his horror, a masked man entered the carriage and grabbed him by the neck. Who are you? Cody was terrified. He tried to push the man away, but he found himself unable to muster his strength. Release him. He is the second heir of House Linker. The naked woman grabbed a dagger and attacked the masked man, but she was quickly subdued. The masked man slapped her dagger away and struck her on the neck, which made her fall unconscious. Seeing how quickly she was subdued, Cody no longer resisted, fear gripping his heart. I can give you money. Just spare me. The masked man didn't respond and just stared at him coldly. In the next moment, Cody slowly lost consciousness. Sikas grabbed the unconscious Cody and dragged him out of the carriage. He then stripped the guy naked and tied him upside down on top of a tree. After doing this, Sikas left the scene. "I don't see Sir Sikas," Shin Dol-suk mumbled while searching for Sikas. "Don't worry about him. He should be hunting right now." Warwick sent him a smile. "I see. Should we wait for him?" Shin Dol-suk asked. "It's fine. He can find his way back. We can just leave tracks that he can follow." Warwick waved his hand. "All right." Shin Dol-suk no longer pursued the matter. It has been half a day since they left Ulmunson and the sky was gradually turning dark. "Commander Shin, is the road still safe at night?" Alaric's voice drifted into his ear. "Bandits rarely come here and the warriors are still active at night, so it should be safe." Shin Dol-suk responded right away. Hearing this, Alaric rubbed his chin thoughtfully before he made his decision. "Then we will continue the journey. We can rest tomorrow night." "Yes, Your Highness," the group replied in unison. Half an hour later, Sikas returned with a wild boar tied on his horse. No one asked him why he disappeared. Although Shin Dol-suk was curious, he didn't bother to ask when he saw that no one seemed to be interested. A few days later, a magnificent city came into their view. It was surrounded by tall earthen walls with hundreds of mounted mana cannons and ballistas. Alaric also sensed the various defensive engravings on the wall. "So this is Sorel, the capital of Veronica." He could already see the tall buildings and the exquisite infrastructure within the city. "We are here, Your Highness. That is Sorel." Shin Dol-suk pointed to the city with a look of pride. Alaric smiled faintly and said, "Let's go." The group later arrived in front of the city's main entrance where a long queue of people was waiting to enter the city. "You are special guests from Estania, so we don't need to queue up. Just stay here for a moment while I talk with the person in charge," Shin Dol-suk eagerly said. While he was looking for the leader of the gatekeepers, Alaric and the others calmly waited. They looked completely different from the locals, so their presence immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. "Who are those people? They look like foreigners. Those barbaric faces. I think they are from Estania. Why are Estanians here?" The locals looked visibly displeased when they heard this. At this moment, an old gatekeeper suddenly approached these Estanians together with his subordinates. The locals watched the scene with interest. They expected some kind of action, but they soon became disappointed. "Your Highness, please come this way. I will escort you all the way to the Imperial Palace." The old gatekeeper smiled warmly. Alaric was pleased. He thought that the gatekeepers would make things difficult for them, but they were surprisingly hospitable. "I would greatly appreciate your help." He didn't reject the old gatekeeper. Having him join them would make things more convenient. "Haha, you are a decisive man, Your Highness." The old gatekeeper praised him. Alaric exchanged pleasantries with him. A moment later, the old gatekeeper led them inside the city under the mixed feelings of the crowd. Sorel has developed steadily after Her Majesty rose to the throne. This place was once inhabited by lawless people, but they quickly vanished as soon as Her Majesty stepped onto the throne. The old gatekeeper was a chatterbox. He repeatedly praised the Veronican Empress with a look of veneration. He introduced the city's most popular spots, and he also gave them a rough introduction to the city's history. Because of his non-stop praises to the Empress, Alaric became even more excited to see this famous figure. Chapter 568 Strict Rules in the Palace. Chapter 568 Strict Rules in the Palace. A special carriage was sent to bring them to the Imperial Palace. Along the way, the old gatekeeper told him about the various things he had to keep in mind inside the palace. "The Imperial family is very strict about safety, Your Highness. Once you enter the gates, your weapons must be surrendered to the Imperial Guards." Alaric raised an eyebrow upon hearing this. To a warrior, their weapons were like an extension of their bodies. "Do I really have to do that?" The old gatekeeper forced a smile. "Unfortunately, Your Highness has to. Otherwise, the Imperial Guards wouldn't allow you to enter. They might even send you to prison." Alaric frowned. "Luckily, I left Zephyr outside the city. It would have been troublesome if I had brought the beast here with all these restrictions." After about 45 minutes, they arrived at the gates of the palace where dozens of Imperial Guards were waiting for them. Alaric stepped out of the carriage and calmly observed the Imperial Guards. All of them were elite knights, looking incredibly imposing in their gaudy armor. One of them had a silver helmet with a black mane. He also had a black cape with the unique insignia of Veronica. This guy who seemed to be their leader was a transcendent knight. His attributes were way above the average and his traits were also of a higher grade. "Greetings, Your Highness. I am the commander of the black-maned Silver Knights, Guan Jiho." The man introduced himself while taking off his helmet. Alaric knew that it was a gesture of respect to remove one's helmet. He let out a smile at this simple gesture. "It's an honor, Commander Guan. Your Highness, you can leave your weapons to me." I will return them to you once you leave the palace. Guan Jiho studied his expression. Alaric had already been informed by the old gatekeeper, so he handed over his weapons without complaint. Thank you for your trust, Your Highness. Guan Jiho bowed respectfully before he carefully placed Alaric's weapon inside a box. He then handed the box to a subordinate. Your Highness, you can only take 2 people inside the palace and they must temporarily surrender their weapons. Guan Jiho added. Alaric nodded. He had already chosen the 2 people who would follow him inside the palace. Sekus, Galliner. Give them your weapons and follow me inside the palace, he commanded. The 2 transcendents stepped forward and handed their weapons over to the Imperial Guards. The rest of your people will be taken to a separate mansion. Guan Jiho reminded him in case Alaric would be worried about his subordinates. All right. Alaric sent his subordinates a look and noticed Nivis giving him a resentful glare. She must be fuming because I didn't choose her to follow me inside the palace. He snickered as he looked away from her. Bringing her inside wouldn't be good. The girl still lacked the common sense of a human, so she might do something that would anger the Empress. Your Highness, you may use this horse. I will take you to the palace. Guan Jiho pulled a handsome white horse with a golden mane. Alaric patted the horse and whispered something to it to form a bond with the creature. This was a standard practice he does to form a connection with his horses. The white horse issued a sound as if delighted by his words. Feeling the creature's joy, Alaric jumped onto its back and placed his feet on the stirrups. Galliner and Sekus were also provided with their own horses. The 2 warriors stuck close to Alaric, making sure that he was protected. Please follow me. Guan Jiho nodded to them. With a light squeeze of his legs, he urged his horse to move. They passed by the cobbled path in between neat rows of pine trees. In the vast man-made grassland, they saw various animals running around. Most of them were just normal animals with no traces of mana. Seeing his gaze on the animals, Guan Jiho explained with a smile. Her Majesty loves animals. She asked us to bring small animals to this grassland to make it more lively. Her Majesty must be a gentle person, Alaric remarked with a chuckle. He didn't expect that a fierce character like Esquila actually had this side of her. Other people might not believe it if he were to tell them about this. Along the way, they encountered more Imperial guards who were roaming around the palace grounds. Soon, they finally arrived in front of the palace. Guan Jiho talked with the doorkeepers for about a minute before they were allowed entry. Your Highness, this is as far as I can take you. Guan Jiho bowed deeply. Alaric smiled at him. Thank you for your help, Commander Guan. He wanted to give him a small tip, but the guy refused to accept it. Your Highness, I am the Left Minister, Chun Minjun. It's an honor to meet you. An old man dressed rather flamboyantly approached him with a laugh. Alaric turned his head and used his appraisal on the old man. He was only a transcendent knight, a weak one at that. Alaric lost interest, so he closed the system panel. The honor is mine, Left Minister Chun. He smiled at the old man. The Left Minister came with a small group of people, mostly ministers of Veronica. There were also high-ranking military commanders and decorated generals. The lineup left Alaric dazzled. Most of these people were transcendent knights or 3-ringed beast soul masters. The last time he had seen so many transcendents was during the battle meeting against Harun. The Left Minister and the various officials exchanged pleasantries with him. Some of them even chatted with Sekus and Galliner, but the 2 only responded curtly. Her Majesty has been anticipating your arrival, Your Highness. She said that she is excited to see the rising star of Estania. Haha! The Left Minister stroked his beard with a hearty laugh. Chapter 569 Esquila Veronica's Unparalleled Beauty and Elegance. Chapter 569 Esquila Veronica's Unparalleled Beauty and Elegance. The Left Minister and the various officials brought them to the throne room. As soon as the huge double doors were opened, Alaric saw a woman seated on the throne. She was dressed in her dragon and phoenix robes adorned with mystical jewelry. On her head was her jeweled crown, shining with resplendent light. She wore a calm look like a celestial fairy indifferent to the mundane world. As Alaric walked along the red carpet, Alaric observed the Empress's face. Her beauty was unlike any other woman he had ever seen. She had monolith eyes and pristine skin like that of a refined gem. She carried an air of elegance and charm that could make one fall into a daze. At the end of the red carpet, Alaric bowed to the Empress. He was the Prince of Estania, so he wasn't required to kneel. I greet the absolute ruler and most beautiful woman on the continent. It's my greatest joy to witness your Majesty's divine presence. Esquila smiled at his unique way of greeting. So you are Alaric Silversword, the 3rd Prince of Estania and the sole heir of House Silversword. I thought that it was only a rumor that you advanced to the mythical knight realm, but it seems like it was true. Alaric humbly smiled. I just got lucky, Your Majesty. He secretly used his appraisal on the Empress. Esquila Veronica, Mythical Knight, EXP. 8851/10,000. Potential, SSS. Traits, Immortal Beauty L. Swordsmanship, SSS. Close Combat, SSS. Horseback Riding, SS. Dagger Mastery, SS. Intuition, SS. Archery, S. Command, S. Dancing, S. Painting, S. Angelic Voice, S. Strength, 1,455. Stamina, 1,253. Agility, 1,464. Vitality, 1,379. Endurance, 1,366. Mana, 1,450. Alaric was astounded by her high attributes. Just like the Estanian emperor, she also possessed a terrifying set of traits. What a ridiculously powerful woman. However, what surprised him the most was still her unparalleled beauty. He finally understood why many supreme figures tried to court her. Lucky! The Veronican Empress giggled with a shake of her head. Her voice sounded so angelic, like music to everyone's ears. No one in the same realm has ever said that. She added, seemingly amused by his words. Alaric awkwardly chuckled. I don't dare flaunt my talent in front of the most talented woman in history. I still have a long way to go compared to your majesty. Esquila beamed at his words, revealing her pearly white teeth. You are quite the smooth talker. Would you mind if I call you by your name? The left minister and the various officials were taken aback when they heard this. The Empress was known for being indifferent to the opposite sex, but she was showing great enthusiasm for the young Estanian prince. It would be an honor, your majesty. Alaric bowed with a smile. All right then. Alaric, tell me what you came here for. The Empress stared deeply at him, studying his appearance from head to foot. She had seen many peerless men, but none of them were as handsome as this Estanian prince. He was also humble despite his outstanding background and power. Hearing this, Alaric took a deep breath to gather his thoughts. Your Majesty, I don't know if you have heard of it, but Estania's bishop was killed on his way back home from his trip to Veronica. The Empress's smile stiffened at his words. Her eyes turned cold as she turned her head to the left minister. Is this true? The left minister nervously wiped off the sweat on his forehead as he replied. Why yes, your Majesty. Esquila frowned. Why did I not hear something like this? Because you told us not to report on matters unrelated to the empire. The left minister wanted to say that, but he didn't dare to. Your Majesty, I was just about to tell you about this. But there were a lot of things to take care of. Enough. I don't want to hear your excuses. Esquila waved her sleeve with a cold snort, looking domineering and elegant at the same time. The left minister lowered his head, not daring to utter another word. Leave. All of you. I want to speak with Alaric in private. The Empress commanded. The ministers and the officials quickly left the throne room. The Grand Commander hesitated for a moment, but he also left after some thought. No one was worried about the Empress's safety. She was the strongest warrior in all of Veronica. Even if Alaric were to attack her, it would only lead to his death. After they left, the throne room was left empty. At this moment, the Empress stood up and walked down from her throne. Her movements carried otherworldly elegance that left Alaric breathless. She stood in front of Alaric and let out a sigh. Please forgive me. I didn't know that such a tragic event had happened within my territory. Looking at her apologetic face, Alaric couldn't bring himself to get angry. It's not your Majesty's fault, so you don't need to apologize. Esquila shook her head. This happened in my land, so it is my responsibility. After a moment of silence, she looked at him and said, Tell me more about it. Alaric nodded and told her everything that he knew. When she heard him mention the heretic group, her face darkened. So it's them. I have been searching for their whereabouts all this time, but they are like rats that are very difficult to find. I'm deeply saddened and furious that a selfless man like the bishop has died in their hands. She lifted her hand and patted Alaric's shoulder. Don't worry. I will make things right to give Estania and the church an explanation. She promised with a stern look. Alaric looked down at her fair hand. It was flawlessly white and he had this urge to touch it, but he controlled himself. Your Majesty, we will help you with the investigation. We cannot let your people do all the work. He looked at her with a determined gaze. All right. She let out a smile that almost made him fall into an illusion. I will send a team of Imperial Guards led by the Grand Commander to investigate this matter. Alaric looked away from her and expressed his gratitude. I thank your Majesty from the bottom of my heart. Chapter 570 stumbled upon a huge secret. Chapter 570 stumbled upon a huge secret. You may leave. Someone will come to notify you once the investigation begins. The Empress sent him off with a smile. Alaric bowed respectfully and stepped out of the throne room. Once he left the throne room, his smile faded. There's something weird happening. Alaric felt that there was something off with the Empress, but this was only his gut feeling. While he was immersed in his thoughts, a pleasant voice drifted into his ears. Your Highness, I am Samantha. I will take you to your mansion. Alaric turned his head and saw a beautiful blonde woman with monolid eyes. From her facial features, Alaric could tell that she wasn't a pure Veronican. He buried his suspicions and let out a warm smile. All right, lead the way. This way, please. Samantha bowed deeply, unintentionally revealing a steep ravine. Alaric noticed her little tricks, but he acted indifferently about it. They walked along the well-decorated hallway of the palace. There were imperial guards stationed every 5 meters. They stood unmoving like wooden statues. Alaric looked at Samantha, who was walking in front of them. She had a shapely figure, the dream body of all women. However, Alaric saw something suspicious about her. She was a 3-ringed beast soul master, but that wasn't the most suspicious part. It was her traits. Samantha, 3-ringed beast soul master XP. 233/5000. Potential S. Integrated monster traits. Hypnotize, SSS. Illusion, SS. Death curse, S. Traits. Poison mastery, SS. Disguise, S. Charm, S. Dagger mastery, A. Close combat, A. Strength, 299. Stamina, 301. Agility, 341. Vitality, 322. Endurance, 325. Mana, 420. Why would the Empress send someone as suspicious as this to guide me? He felt like he had stumbled upon a huge secret, something that would turn the entirety of Veronica upside down. Miss Samantha, are you close to Her Majesty? He casually probed while putting on a smile. Samantha glanced at him and shook her head. I wouldn't dare get close to Her Majesty. I'm just a lowly servant, Your Highness. Being able to work for Her Majesty is already a great honor for someone like me. I see. You look so stunning that I thought you were Her Majesty close confidant or something. He praised while admiring her assets. Samantha noticed his sneaky glances, but she just smiled it off. She even changed her posture to make it easier for him to look. This woman, if I didn't have my appraisal, I would have already been fooled by her little tricks. Alaric sneered in his mind. He felt lucky that he had his appraisal. Samantha brought them outside of the palace where a carriage was already waiting for them. She opened the carriage door and gestured at him. Your Highness, the carriage will take you to the mansion. Alaric was hesitant, but he still entered. If something were to happen, he was ready to protect himself. I don't smell any poison. You should be safe for now, he thought after taking his seat inside the carriage. Samantha sat opposite him, and she angled herself so her undergarments would be slightly visible to him. Others would think that this was just coincidental, but Alaric knew that she was deliberately doing this. As for what her goal was, Alaric also wanted to find out. Alaric didn't even bother to hide his gaze. He stared unblinkingly at her long legs and her exposed undergarments. His invasive gaze took Samantha aback. She thought that he would try to be discreet with it. Well, this makes things easier. She smiled. Your Highness, do you want me to help you relax at the mansion? She asked as she leaned forward with a seductive expression. Alaric stared at her cleavage before turning his eyes to her face. How about here? Can't you help me relax on our way to the mansion? Samantha pretended to hesitate. But Your Highness's subordinates are outside. They might notice something. Don't mind them. They know what to do. Alaric chuckled and pulled her to his embrace. Samantha yelped in surprise. Please be gentle, Your Highness. She put on a pitiful look. Alaric smirked and asked with a deep look. So how are you going to make me feel relaxed? Samantha looked away from him and touched his chest. I will do whatever Your Highness want. Looking at her acting so demure, Alaric nearly laughed. What a good actress. Let's see how far you can go with your acting. Then can you use that lovely little mouth of yours? He sent her a teasing look. You mean, Your Highness wants me to? Samantha shyly lowered her head to look at the bulge in his pants. Why? Is it not part of your service? He chuckled as he unbuttoned his pants. Samantha was shocked by his boldness. This guy. Is he serious? Does he really want me to do it here? She couldn't think clearly because of Alaric's directness. The plans she had cooked up became useless. For the cult, I will do it. She took a deep breath and faced Alaric with her most seductive smile. Let me do it, Your Highness. Without waiting for his response, she unbuttoned his pants and pulled it down. She could already see how thick and long he was underneath his undergarment. She nervously grabbed his undergarment. She could feel his skin getting hotter as she lowered his undergarment. In the next moment, she saw the biggest and hardest spear she had ever seen. It was nearly the size of her arm. She covered her mouth in shock. So big. What are you waiting for? Alaric's magnetic voice drifted into her ears. With trembling hands, she grabbed his erect cock. It was hot. It felt hot in her hands and she could feel it twitching under her grip. She slowly moved her hands up and down to stimulate his glands. She could feel his warm breath on her neck with her every stroke. Unknowingly, she found herself turned on by the erotic atmosphere. Chapter 571 Each with their own objectives. Chapter 571 Each with their own objectives. She is willing to go this far? Are the members of the heretic group this insane? Alaric only wanted to tease her, but he didn't expect her to go this far. I will keep this woman close and try to find out more about the heretic group from her. Maybe we can find some leads about the bishop's death through her. While he was immersed in his thoughts, Samantha picked up her pace. She moved her hands faster, making Alaric more stimulated. Suddenly, Alaric felt her warm mouth wrapping around his glands. She licked his glands and sucked it, which constantly stimulated him. This girl knows her stuff. Unable to hold back, Alaric grabbed her head and moved his hips, thrusting his erect shaft down her throat. Gawk! Gawk! Samantha rolled her eyes while giving him a lustful look. Emina, she moaned seductively while sucking his cock. A quarter of an hour later, Alaric felt that he was reaching close to his limits. He grabbed her hair and pulled his cock out of her mouth. I'm about to come. Open your mouth for me. He stroked his glands while aiming the tip directly into her stretched-out pinkish tongue. In the next moment, a burst of white liquid splashed into her mouth and all over her face. After releasing all that he had, Alaric shoved his cock back into her mouth. Clean it up for me. Samantha obediently complied and moved her head back and forth. She then licked every last bit of his cum and swallowed it down while keeping her seductive eyes on him. Did you like my service, Your Highness? She smiled while licking the tip of his glands, teasing him. Alaric chuckled. I am satisfied with your service. Now get up and clean yourself. I think we are close to the mansion. Samantha nodded and cleaned her face with the cloth he had given. A moment later, they arrived in front of a gated mansion. We are here, Your Highness. Your subordinates should be here too, Samantha told him. She then stepped out of the carriage and kept it open for him. Thank you. Let's do it again later. Alaric sent her a knowing smile. Samantha shyly nodded. I will do anything you want, Your Highness. Alaric laughed while shaking his head. When will our weapons be returned to us? He casually asked to change the topic. He had to make this woman think that he would be an easy target to manipulate. The first thing to do was to make her comfortable. I will send word to the Imperial Guards so they can return your equipment before nightfall. Samantha replied. Good. Show me around the mansion. Alaric nodded. It would be my pleasure. Samantha answered with a beaming smile. At this moment, Sekus and Galliner got off their horses and followed them silently. Samantha gave him a tour around the house. She had infiltrated the Imperial Palace for years, so she was already familiar with most things. An hour later, the tour ended and Alaric suggested for the group to have some coffee. Samantha enthusiastically showed off her brewing skills. As a professional spy, she had received training on household chores like this. Here's your coffee, Your Highness. I added some milk and a teaspoon of honey so it wouldn't be too bitter. She handed a cup of freshly brewed coffee to Alaric. Thank you. Alaric took the cup and placed it down the table after giving it a good smell. It smells good, he remarked. I have been training to brew coffee for 5 years, so it. Samantha explained how she learned how to make coffee. Alaric didn't know if it was true, but he still responded. That's awesome. I tried making coffee before, but I just couldn't get the right consistency. Brewing coffee may look easy, but you have many things to consider when making one. The two chatted randomly, each with their own objectives in mind. Your Highness, would you like some snacks to pair with your coffee? She asked. Alaric thought for a moment and nodded. Yes, I would love some pastries. Bring some for my subordinates too. All right, I will have the cooks prepare your snacks. Samantha stood up from her seat, bowed, and left with sashaying hips. After she left, Alaric's smile vanished. Hey you, why do you have a disgusting smell on you? Nivis's voice drifted into his ears. Alaric turned his head and saw her walking towards the sofa adjacent to him. She sent him a suspicious look as she observed him from head to foot. You are just overthinking it. He couldn't be bothered to explain it to her. The centaurus had an unpredictable personality, so it was better not to tell her some things. Nivis took her seat with a snort. That woman, I don't trust her. I can smell something fishy about her. Alaric nonchalantly sipped his coffee before he replied. I know. Just keep quiet and act normal. Hearing his response, Nivis scoffed at him. She then grabbed his cup and emptied it. Not bad. At least she knows how to make something this good. Alaric could only shake his head helplessly at her rude behavior. I think she needs to learn more from Hershey and Ivana. It was a mistake to leave her with Matilda. Half an hour later, Samantha returned with 2 maidservants. They were pushing tray carts with all sorts of pastries. Your Highness, your snacks are ready. Nivis was annoyed when she saw her. She stood up from her seat and walked away. Samantha was a bit surprised to see her. She wanted to ask Alaric, but she was afraid to pry on his personal matters. Not now. I need to be patient, she thought to herself. Whoa, they look delicious, Alaric exclaimed, feigning surprise. I told the cooks to prepare enough for your Highness and your subordinates. Samantha served his snacks while intentionally revealing her cleavage in front of him. Look at this bitch. Alaric was amused when he saw this. Chapter 572 Sending Sekus to tail Samantha. Chapter 572 Sending Sekus to tail Samantha. By the way, I heard that there are suspicious religious groups here that are spreading evil throughout Veronica. Do you know anything about them? Alaric casually asked while motioning for her to sit. Samantha's face did not fluctuate. She calmly took her seat and replied with a nod. There are rumors about them, and we Veronicans call them the heretic cult. But why do you ask, Your Highness? Alaric shook his head. I'm just curious since our guide here told us to be careful about them. Your guide? Samantha looked at the person he had pointed to and realized that it was a fellow Veronican. This is Shin Dolsuk. He is the commander of Gilson's army. Alaric introduced with a faint smile. Shin Dolsuk sent Samantha a nod to show his respect. Samantha stood up from her seat and bowed. It's an honor to see you, Commander Shin. Miss Samantha, if you have news about the heretic cult, please inform me right away, Alaric suddenly said while observing her expression. Samantha nodded, her face looking grim. Yes, Your Highness. What convincing acting, he sneered in his mind. Later on, they chatted about random matters, mostly about the recent events in Veronica. When the sky was about to turn dark, Samantha excused herself. Your Highness, I must go now. Her Majesty might need something from me. Alaric put on a reluctant expression. What a pity. I thought you could stay here for the night. Samantha smiled apologetically and replied. I will come here again tomorrow morning. All right then. See you tomorrow. Alaric waved his hand while shaking his head. Samantha bowed deeply and bid him farewell before she left. Alaric stood by the window and watched her leave in a carriage. He then beckoned to Sekus and instructed him in a serious voice. Follow her, but if it gets dangerous, retreat immediately. Sekus nodded calmly. I obey. Whoosh. He left with a whoosh. At this moment, Nivis walked by his side with her arms crossed. Are you sure about sending him alone? That woman might be more dangerous than you think. Alaric looked at her and smiled. Sekus will be fine on his own. Even if it's you, you won't be able to sense him if he were to tail you. Nivis scoffed at his words. A bug like him? Even if he were to hide his aura, I could still sense his presence. Alaric didn't bother to respond. He just chuckled while shaking his head. He was confident in Sekus's abilities. Even a venerable would have a hard time tracking his presence. Take that annoying smile off your face. I will make my own investigation. I will show you that no one on this continent can trace me. Nivis let out a snort and left fuming. Alaric didn't stop her. The centauress was a stubborn one. She wouldn't even listen to his commands. With her strength, as long as she doesn't randomly provoke a venerable, she should be fine. He thought with a wry smile. Lord Venerable, I'm afraid Miss Nivis might do something reckless. Galinor's worried voice drifted into his ears. Alaric sighed helplessly. What can we do? You know her personality. She would only listen to me if she wanted to. Nivis had gotten closer to him, but she still hadn't gotten rid of her disdain towards humans. She still thought of them as lesser beings who were beneath her. Galinor no longer said anything. Just let her be. I will deal with the situation in case she messes up. Alaric felt like he was looking after an unruly sister. I understand. Galinor nodded. Inside her carriage, Samantha's warm smile vanished. Why did he ask about the cult? Is he suspecting me? She thought about her actions earlier, but she didn't remember anything that would link her to the heretic cult. No, there's no way for him to know anything about my identity, but I need to be more careful next time. He might sense something if I say anything suspicious. Miss, are we heading back to the palace? The coachman's voice drifted into her ears. Hearing this, Samantha shook off her thoughts and replied, We can return later. Bring me to the market district first. I need to get something. All right, please sit tight. The road ahead will be bumpy. The coachman reminded. Sikas was following the carriage when he noticed that it took a different route. They aren't heading to the palace. No wonder the Lord Venerable sent me to follow her. There must be something suspicious about this woman. As an expert assassin, he had already studied the main routes of the capital. From his knowledge, the carriage was heading towards the market district. Why is she heading to the market district? He tailed the carriage at a safe distance so Samantha wouldn't sense his presence. He retracted his aura and even controlled his breathing. Soon, they reached a populated area of the city. Sikas blended in with the crowd. He wore a straw hat and covered his clothes in a cloak to avoid being discovered. The carriage he was following later stopped in front of a flower shop. He saw Samantha stepping out of the carriage with a bright smile on her face. She gracefully bowed to the coachman before she entered the flower shop. Sikas observed her actions using his unique perception. There seemed to be nothing wrong with her, but he discovered that she was making eye contact with a random stranger in the crowd. The stranger suddenly looked in his direction, so he had to look away and pretend to buy something from a street stall. This guy is quite perceptive. Did he sense me? When he no longer felt the gaze, Sikas immediately changed spots and calmly walked along the street. Using his peripheral vision, he observed Samantha and the stranger. The guy was dressed like a commoner, looking incredibly shabby in his linen clothes. They are exchanging coded messages. He noticed that the two were exchanging hand gestures, but he couldn't decipher the meaning for now. Chapter 573 Samantha returns to the mansion. Chapter 573 Samantha returns to the mansion. After they exchanged coded messages, Samantha entered the flower shop, while the guy in linen clothes walked away like nothing had happened. Sikas thought of following the man, but his task was only to tail Samantha. I should just focus on my task. Samantha didn't take long inside the flower shop. In about 10 minutes, she left with a potted plant. Sikas tried to decipher the hidden reason for her actions, but he didn't find anything unusual about it. So she just came here to send the coded message to that person. But what did she tell him? It might take some time for me to decipher the message. Samantha returned to the carriage and they headed straight to the palace before nightfall. Knowing that it was dangerous inside the palace, Sikas retreated and headed back to the mansion. Lord Venerable, I saw Samantha heading to the market district. Sikas reported what he saw. The market district? Why would she go there? Alaric frowned. I saw her exchanging coded signals with a man before she entered a flower shop. I still don't know what they were talking about, but I should be able to decipher everything by tomorrow. As an expert assassin, he wasn't just good at killing or tracking people. He was also trained in deciphering coded messages and signals. Alaric nodded. Good. Report to me once you decipher the coded messages. Yes, Lord Venerable. Sikas turned around and left. After he left, Alaric rubbed his chin thoughtfully. This just confirmed my suspicions. Although it's not yet certain that Samantha is connected to the heretic cult, she is definitely hiding a big secret. She might even have something to do with the Empress's unusual behavior. He remembered that Samantha had a high mastery of poison. She also had an SSS-Rank hypnotize trait. Some pieces of the puzzle now fell perfectly in place, but Alaric wasn't satisfied because there were still many pieces left to solve. The next day, Alaric was awoken by a series of knocks on his door. He opened his eyes and sat up. You may come in. Creak. Samantha stepped in with a bright smile. She was dressed in a blue dress that clung tightly to her body, which accentuated her curves. Good morning, Your Highness. Your breakfast will be ready soon. She approached him and helped him tidy the bed. You came. Alaric beamed, his eyes roaming over her body. Sensing his gaze, Samantha sent her a sultry look. Your Highness, do you want me to help you relax? Alaric replied with a knowing smile. I wouldn't decline your offer. Samantha got down on her knees and pulled down his pants. Alaric's spear was already hard. She grabbed it with both hands and expertly stroked it while looking up to see his reaction. How are you already this hard, Your Highness? She asked before planting a kiss on his glands. I can make it harder if you undress your clothes. Alaric smiled evilly. Samantha giggled and obediently undressed while maintaining eye contact with him. Alaric was aroused by her gaze, and he had even momentarily forgotten that she might be a member of the heretic cult. As soon as she removed her dress, her naked body was revealed to him. Do you like my body, Your Highness? She embraced him and inhaled his manly scent. Alaric fondled her breasts and kissed her neck. I love it, he whispered. Mena. Under his stimulation, Samantha moaned with her eyes closed. Alaric sucked on her nipples and inserted his finger inside her wet cave. His finger slid smoothly. Samantha shivered at the unexpected stimulation. Your Highness, if you do that, I might. Samantha covered her mouth, her eyes filled with lust and satisfaction. Alaric played with her wet cave and made her come twice with just his fingers. He removed his fingers and put them in her mouth. You really made a mess here. You should clean this up. He chuckled. Samantha sucked on his wet fingers while stroking his erect spear. It's my turn now, Your Highness. She got down on her knees and placed his glands inside her mouth. Alaric closed his eyes in satisfaction. Deeper. Samantha tried to push his cock deeper into her throat, but it was just too big that it made her gag in reflex. It's too big, she exclaimed with tears in her eyes. With the size of his cock, only the tip could barely fit inside her mouth. Almost half an hour later, Alaric shot his load on her face. Samantha yelped in surprise. She could feel his warm semen all over her face. She licked her lips and sent him a seductive look. Thank you for the treat, Your Highness. Alaric's cock turned stiff again, but it wasn't the right time to indulge, so he put on his pants after wiping off his shaft. You should stay here tonight. Understanding his intentions, Samantha shyly lowered her head. Yes, Your Highness. I won't leave the mansion tonight. Good. Clean yourself up and make sure that the smell is gone. I'll head to the dining hall after taking a quick bath. He didn't wait for her response and left the room. Once he was gone, Samantha revealed a look of disgust. She eyed the door coldly and muttered, "Just a little bit more and you will fall into my hands." Alaric changed into a new set of clothes after taking a bath. He then headed to the dining hall to eat with his subordinates. Where is Nivis? He looked around, but he didn't find the centauress. This made him feel a bit worried. Miss Nivis hasn't returned yet, Lord Venerable, Galliner responded. Hearing this, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Einar, Butch? You two go find her after the meal. Yes, Lord Venerable. Alaric clapped his hands and said, Bring in the food. As soon as his words fell, the servants came in to serve their food. Samantha was also there to help the servants. She specifically served the best dishes in front of Alaric. Your Highness, please enjoy your meal. She smiled at him. Chapter 574 The Inspectors from the Inspection Department. Chapter 574 The Inspectors from the Inspection Department. After the meal, Alaric was informed that a messenger from the palace was waiting for him at the main hall. Before heading to the main hall, he sent Butch and Einar a look. You two find Nivis as soon as possible. Yes, Lord Venerable. The two responded in unison and left with haste. In the main hall, a middle-aged man wearing an inspector's uniform was seated on the sofa, waiting with a bored look. Behind him stood two younger inspectors who seemed to be his assistants. They were in the middle of a conversation when they heard footsteps coming from the stairs. They turned their heads and saw a young man with long silver hair dressed in a white and blue suit, looking incredibly sharp and handsome. Behind him followed a group of intimidating warriors who eyed them fiercely. The three inspectors nervously stood up and bowed to the young man. Greetings, Your Highness. I apologize if we may have disturbed you. I am Jaemund Felton, a senior inspector of the City Inspection Department. The senior inspector said with an apologetic smile. Veronica had a different department responsible for investigating various issues within the Empire. They mostly handle local disputes and murder cases. Estania also had a similar department, but compared to the organized system of Veronica, Estania's inspection department fell short. Alaric smiled and waved his hand. It's all right. Have a seat. He motioned at them. The inspectors took their seats. They were restless because they rarely interacted with big shots like him. Just relax and tell me what you came here for. Alaric chuckled when he saw the look on their faces. Jaemund Felton smiled in embarrassment. He cleared his throat before he replied. We received an order from the palace to cooperate with the Imperial Guards in investigating the murder of Estania's bishop. At this point, his expression became serious as he continued. To tell you the truth, we already have clues on this case. But all the evidence that our inspectors found at the scene suddenly disappeared. Alaric frowned at his words. How could you lose something so important? Sensing his displeasure, Jaemund immediately explained. Your Highness, this matter involves the heretic cult and it's clear that they have people in our department. Alaric crossed his arms, his eyes looking cold. If your inspection department is this rotten, how can I trust you guys? What if you are also part of the heretic cult? One of the junior inspectors looked annoyed at his remarks, but he was afraid to say anything. The other one couldn't even look Alaric in the eye and just hung his head low in silence. Jaemund Felton sighed helplessly. I understand your frustration, but I promise you that we are here to help. He stared deeply at Alaric and said in a stern voice, the inspection department might have some rotten apples, but there are still good people there. Please give us the chance to help you. He stood up and bowed deeply. The two junior inspectors also rose to their feet and bowed to him. Looking at the three inspectors, Alaric's eyes eased up. All right, since you came here with good intentions, I will trust you. However, you must report to me immediately once you discover something. I understand, Your Highness. We will do our best. Jaemund nodded. He then took something out of his inner pocket. It was a piece of paper placed inside an envelope. This is all that we know about the heretic cult. It might be of help to Your Highness. Alaric sent a signal to Scylla, who was the closest to the inspectors. Understanding his intentions, Scylla took the envelope from the senior inspector and handed it to Alaric. He opened the envelope and read the document. There were also specific locations of various establishments which were believed to be the hideouts of the heretic cult. Alaric skimmed through the list of names, but he didn't find Samantha's name on it. Are the names here proven to be members of the cult, or are they just suspects? He asked as he handed the document to Scylla. Jaemund Felton shook his head. The ones who are proven to be members of the cult are highlighted. The others are still under investigation. The members of the heretic cult were like slippery eels. They were difficult to catch. Even the veteran inspectors of the inspection department couldn't track their whereabouts. Are you saying that we might find something if we capture these people? Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. That's right. The ones on the list are high-ranking members of the cult. If we capture them, we might find useful information. The senior inspector replied. Alaric rubbed his chin. He only brought 10 people with him, and most of them weren't skilled in tracking and investigations. Even if he were to help the inspection department in searching for the people on the name list, they wouldn't be able to provide much assistance. I will help you, but I will need manpower. Can you give me that? Alaric asked with a calm smile. The senior inspector took a deep breath as he pondered for a moment. He could sense everyone's eyes on him, and the pressure almost made him feel suffocated. Your Highness, most of our inspectors are just normal people. They don't have the power to fight against knights and beast soul warriors. Jaemund was worried about his subordinate's safety. He was afraid that they might have to clash with the members of the cult in the middle of the investigation. Hearing his concern, Alaric reassured him. You don't have to worry about that. I only need eyes. We will handle the fighting. Jaemund deliberated carefully before he nodded. All right. I hope you will be true to your words, Your Highness. Alaric smiled at him. The Imperial Guards will assist us, so most of the fighting will be handled by them. Your people will only help with the investigation. Jaemund could only helplessly shake his head. If it weren't for the pressure from the Imperial Guards and the higher-ups of the inspection department, he wouldn't have accepted this difficult task. Chapter 575 Nivis's Discovery. Chapter 575 Nivis's Discovery. The inspectors excused themselves afterwards. Alaric invited them to a meal, but they tactfully refused, saying that they would immediately begin with the investigation. Alaric watched them leave with a sigh. I don't want our citizens to experience this kind of pressure. Jaemund Felton, the senior inspector, was only a knight, but he would have to handle immense stress and pressure due to the corruption within their department. Lord Venerable, where there is money involved, people would be willing to do anything even if they have to step on other people. That's just the reality of things. William, the old transcendent, remarked. Alaric couldn't refute him. He had seen it for himself in his past life. The depravity of his uncle and the fall of many noble houses due to corruption. He might have changed the past, but many minor things were still developing as they did in his past life. He couldn't change everything. He didn't have the power to do so. With a shake of his head, Alaric said, I will go do my training. Inform me right away if there is any news about Nivis. Yes, Lord Venerable. Somewhere in the capital, Nivis stood in front of a weapon shop with narrowed eyes. I can smell a disgusting scent coming from that building. Without hesitation, she walked towards the shop. Hello, miss. Are you here to look for some weapons? A worker greeted her with a smile. Nivis frowned and waved her hand with undisguised contempt. I can take care of my own business. I don't need your help. The man didn't expect her to show him such contempt, and it made him feel embarrassed. My apologies. If you need anything, just let me know. I will be at the dash. Nivis ignored him and walked away, leaving a fragrant scent in the air. Annoying. Why did I have to do something like this? I shouldn't have left Alaric's side. She regretted her impulsive decision. She wanted to return, but her pride didn't allow her to go back without anything. She had already boasted in front of Alaric, so she could only force herself to continue with the investigation. It should be here somewhere. She followed the strong scent and found herself standing in front of a wall. Strange. The scent came from here. Is there a hidden door somewhere? She looked around, but she couldn't find anything unusual. Miss, there is nothing to see here. Do you want me to help you find what you're looking for? A voice echoed behind her. She turned around and saw a middle-aged man dressed in silk clothes. Based on his appearance, Nivis guessed that he was the owner or at least the manager of the store. However, there was something about this man that made her subconsciously cover her nose. It was his scent. He had a strong smell of blood lingering in his body. It's him. He should know something. Just as she was about to say something, she sensed two familiar auras entering the shop. "Miss Nivis, the Lord Venerable is looking for you." She turned her head and saw Butch, the masked transcendent knight, and Einar, who stood nonchalantly next to him. "Lord Venerable?" The middle-aged man in silk clothes was taken aback when he heard this. He didn't expect this beautiful woman to have an impressive background. He thought that she was just a foreigner who came here to tour Sorrel. He looked at the two newcomers and smiled kindly as he probed. "Are you visitors from Estania?" Butch glanced at him, but looked away without any intention of responding. Meanwhile, Einar just chuckled and shook his head. "Fine, let's go." Nivis snorted and stormed out of the shop. The two transcendent knights quickly chased after her. The middle-aged man watched them leave with a deep frown. "I need to report this to the higher-ups." Nivis later arrived at the mansion, looking incredibly displeased and annoyed. She went straight to the training ground to find Alaric. "Hey!" she called out with a frown. Hearing her voice, Alaric paused his training and looked at her. "What happened? Why do you look so pissed?" he asked with a smile. Nivis walked towards him and complained. "I was this close to discovering something, but you sent two idiots to pick me up. Now, that guy might erase all the tracks, so going back there would be useless." Alaric raised an eyebrow in surprise, not expecting her to find something so soon. "What did you discover?" he asked curiously. Nivis crossed her arms and explained everything. Alaric sent her a stern look. "You mean you sensed a disgusting scent from the shop, so you entered without a careful plan?" He didn't doubt her abilities. She was a catastrophe-grade beast who was close to advancing to the next realm. Whatever she sensed there might be related to the heretic cult. "It could have been dangerous for you to go there alone," he added. Nivis scoffed with a disdainful laugh. "What could those little bugs do to me? Even if I only use one finger, they wouldn't be able to stop me." Alaric was speechless at her arrogance. "Nivis, you might be strong, but we don't know what kind of people there are in the heretic cult. They might even be hiding a venerable. At your current state, can you handle a venerable on your own?" Nivis had been with him for quite some time, so she knew what a venerable was. "Listen here, Alaric. A venerable is nothing to me." She emphasized it word by word. Black lines appeared on Alaric's forehead. His warnings proved to be ineffective. He rubbed his temples and said with a helpless look, "Just don't leave on your own. We will move as a group from now on." "Fine." Nivis shrugged. Alaric shook his head and sighed. "You should get some rest. I will call you when it's time to leave." "I don't need to rest. I'll just stay here and watch you train." The centaurus didn't wait for his response and went to find a spot to sit. "My blood pressure." Alaric took a deep breath to calm his mind. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.